Ciao a tutti, it's Aram, and today we are going to be talking about cards that fell off during, well, from 2014 mainly to today. And yeah, let's get into it. But before that, remember to subscribe. For every subscription, a playlist will be summoned. So let's go. First off, we have Traptrix Tropple Nightmare in, well, not overall, but in random decks. Mainly Gear Gas, but in decks that aren't playing Mermalio. Um, TTHN is just something that really doesn't see play because like there's better traps and you can play around TTHN. Now the fact that nobody's playing TTHN in random decks does mean that you could catch people by surprise because people aren't really playing around it anymore. But even then, like people have started maining Mermalio again in Gilgias, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that you get hit of by TTHN. Um, but yeah, like the main thing is like there's just better traps like Breakthrough Skill, more versatile traps. Now, obviously, there's a couple of decks like Evil Swarms where just it's really solid because you're trying to protect from specific stuff that TTHN is very good against. But for the most part, just Breakthrough Skill is a lot more versatile than TTHN. Similar Veil. On a similar note, we have Effect Veiler, which is also kind of just overshadowed by Breakthrough Skill. The fact that it doesn't stop Yamato and Kuri Bandit is a big knock, but the main thing really is like just there's better negates. Obviously it has an issue in Madouches because of Hoodcake and in Spellbooks because of Spellbook of Life. It's where it's kind of fun to play. But besides that, there's not a lot of reason to play the card, especially in the main deck. So yeah, but people did play it back in the day. A lot. There's like two kinds of cards that fell off. One fell off for min maxing, just people improved, and one for metagame. Different different decks that are relevant in the meta. But Blackhorn is kind of an in between. It's not like it fell off from seeing play. It's just that it's really only a side card nowadays, unless you're trying to pre-side for like Yurgias and such. But you can see that it sees a lot more side deck play. But back in the day, it was a main deck stable in a lot of decks. You see it a lot in Artifact Caprix and Yurgia decks. And the main thing is like it's only really great versus Yurgias. Versus everything else, it's kind of very mid. Artifact Caprix, Mermels. It's really fucking bad versus spellbooks. So yeah, kind of really just a sidecar for Gilgias. Next we have Mind Control, which another card that really just moved to the side deck more. The main thing is like, yeah, it's good in some situations, but there's a lot of times where it's just gonna be stuck in your hand for a while. And there's also a lot of decks where it doesn't really do anything versus depending on what you're playing. The only deck where I really see it still played in the main deck nowadays is Mermals because they have level 3s, 4s, and 7s, so there's not a deck where it's dead. There's not none in the meta. Because you have spellbooks and mythic rulers where if you're playing a rank 4 deck and you have mind control versus those decks, it's really doing nothing to help you. So that's kind of one of the big reasons why also. Next we have a Finish Chain. Not really overall, just in Artifact Caprix decks. Pretty much almost all of these decks are from 2014 and not soon after. The first two decks. The thing is, like in Artifact Caprix, you really don't care about protecting your monsters because you already have the artifacts. And Mermalio, once you get the search off, is not that valuable aside from being a beater. But even then, you might want to just get it to hit the graveyard to summon it back with Enya or Soul Search. So yeah, Finish Chain not seen anymore in Artifact Caprix at least. But I've also seen that people back in the day used to play like 2 in Geargas a lot, and nowadays just play 3 for the most part. Next up we have Book of Moon, which the main thing is like it's a it's a jack of all trades, master of none. But even then, it's not really a jack of all trades. More like it's a 7 of all trades. The main thing is like, yeah, it has some application versus everything, but at the same time, there's rarely a situations where it's the best. Spellbox is like obviously the exception, but besides that, it's kind of like its worst lands, its worst bottomless. I guess it's those are kind of the two main things that it's like just like a worst version of. Unless you're really trying to get over breakthrough skill, there's not too much of a reason to play Book of Moon, in my opinion. So decks that played are, well, obviously spellbooks and evils, and to a lesser extent spirits. I say to a lesser extent because it's less important. But the main thing is like in Geargias, there's really not that much of a reason to play it. In Artifact Fabrics, same. There's no synergy. Even in Madolches, frankly, I don't really see too much of a point in playing it. Vanity's Emptiness, mainly, well, it's not really just Vanity's Emptiness, it's Kaiser Colosseum and Vanity's Emptiness in Bujins and in random decks. I've seen some 2014 lists play Vanities in like Geargias and Spellbooks, and I have no idea why. But it fell off from those kinds of decks, and it also fell off from Mermals. People used to play it in Mermals around like 2022, but nobody really does that nowadays. Maybe side deck it, but yeah, also Constellars. But in Bujins, people stop playing these Floodgates because they're just worse going second. There's more dynamic cards that do more going second, that do more when you do more in more situations, that do stuff in more situations, and they are also great at countering your worst winnable matchup, which is artifact decks. So you would rather just play Crow and breakthroughs and breakthrough skills than waste your time on floodgates and a lot of traps. Frankly, in Bujins don't see too much play anymore. But yeah, like if you see the Bujin stats, there's not anymore Kaiser and stuff. And these staple traps aren't really that staple in Bujins anymore. The main card that you want to play is Breaker Skill, and there's also a lot of DD Crows and Chalices. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. There's it's Bujins have evolved basically away from these cards. Dimensional Prison is more or less like a change of the metagame, me being that hands are not as omnipresent as they were back in 2014, so there's not as much reason to play the card. I've seen people say that it like up until 2022, but not really anymore. Just you don't really need to play the prison in anything, really, unless you're playing like Fire Fists. Or Evil Storms, decks that are super weak to hands, then it makes sense. But besides that, I wouldn't really bother with it. There's also Memory of an Adversary, which really only sees plays in Fire Fist. Then there's Transmigration Prophecy, which used to see play not only in 2014, but even after that. But it really stopped seeing play because DD Crow is just more generic. You see it that it saw a lot of play in the side deck of Artifact Fabrics for a while, but DD Crow is better. Cycle Reader is also better for the most part. So yeah, that's kind of why it fell off. I do like it in Madolches, but not a lot of people do. Apparently, so yeah. Mirror Force, unless you're playing Spellbooks or Giga Karakuri, there's not too much of a reason to play Mirror Force, in my opinion. And even in those decks, it's really just an option that is not the best. The main thing is like there's just better cards that don't die to MST as so much, so we play the better cards. Royal Decree, the main thing with Decree is that it's so weak to back row removal. The only deck where it's really strong versus is Girgias, and even then they do have their outs, quite a lot of them actually. So yeah, especially in the main deck is not real point in playing it. In the side deck maybe, but there's better cards for Girgias. For the most part, maybe you just want to hit that one aspect of the deck, which is fair enough. But even in that situation, I would probably prefer playing Trapsan. Because, if you're playing a deck that would set Decree, they're probably going to set out Wiretap, and if they do, the only real out to Trapsan is Blind MST before, so, Trapsan into a board wipe or, a way to put yourself in the winning position is better. Next, we have Mind Crush, which really doesn't see a lot of play because there's just better side cards for the decks you want to side it in against. The main things is Bujins and Spellbox, but there's DNA Transplant. And versus Gyrios, there's better cards like Nobleman and Blackhorn and Mind Control. So yeah, and in the main deck, there's not a lot of reason to main deck it when artifact decks exist and Mind Crush is completely useless versus them. And on a similar note, we also have Thunder King Ryo, which again completely useless versus artifact decks. Really only good if you open it and going first. And even versus the decks where it's good against, there's just better cards. So yeah, not a lot of reason to run it. And we have Steelsworm Roach, and I want to put in Soul Release too. These two cards are just they don't see play anymore because Lightsworm Ruler doesn't see play anymore. So yeah. Dichotomy was a card that saw quite a bit of play in Artifact Traprix, I mean in Hat. But the main reason why it doesn't see play anymore is one, Hat kind of fell off. It's making a comeback, but the main thing is that it conflicts with Soul Charge, and Soul Charge is the best card in the format. Even if it's not the best card in Artifact Traprix, it's still a better card than Dichotomy. So yeah, yeah, that's why. People back in the day were a lot of the time were playing just one Soul Charge in Artifact Traprix. Nowadays, two is the standard. So yeah. We have Tempo, which really got overshadowed by, well, for a while people just got it, and nowadays Acid Golem is just the card that people play a lot more. It does have some XYZs, kinda, but at the same time there's just more versatile slots in the extra deck that it could be running. Next up we have XYZ Anchor. Still sees a bit of play, but I'm mainly talking about in artifact decks it's saw play, but Evil Storm is just not played enough to warrant running it. In Mythics, and other decks, there's a reason to run it, but at the same time, it's kind of overshadowed by Flying Sea. It does have a niche, because you can just draw into it as opposed to Mythic Rulers, where as opposed to Flying Sea, where you have to see it turn one. Turn one in your first 5 cards. Actually, the Anchor you can kind of just draw into, but at the same time, Flying Sea is a lot more versatile. So yeah, let's see from here. Yeah, Flying Sea has caught up, and if you see nowadays, XYZ Anchor isn't really seen anymore, and Flying sees a lot of more play, but at the same time, the sample size with Mythics isn't that big. Next up, we have Fossil Dana, which saw some side deck play back in the day for some reason. I don't really get why. I guess for Sylvans, but they can kind of just search Martial Leaf a lot of the time. Even if they can either normal summon it or excavate it, and both of these ways it outs Fossil Dana. And the last card I wanted to talk about is XYZ Universe, which is a kind of a random card that saw quite a bit of play in also Girgias, but mainly high level decks, mainly for Girgias. I don't really, the main thing is there's just better side deck cards like Blackhorn or kind of Nobleman. the thing is, like, it's too specific of a card. They need to have 2 explosives on the field, which they can do, but it takes a while for them to get there. So that's kind of why it doesn't really see play anymore. So yeah, that's it for me. Leave a like, join the Discord, subscribe, leave a comment, ring the bell, all the good shit, and goodbye.